Hello and welcome to Business Pants. This is Free Flow Media's daily news show, Business Pants. I'm Damion Rollis. That's Matt Biscardi.
Hello, Damion Rollis.
Good afternoon, Matt.
It is afternoon. We are currently working on expensing our lunch.
I had some feedback right before the show, and this is the feedback. Get at it. Get at it more quickly. So today, let's just get at it.
Wow, you're even cutting me off. Okay.
Yeah, let's get to the agenda. Let's just do it.
All right, let's do it. I'm not going to complain.
I don't want to lose the audience. Today on Business Pants, the big story is the leadership change at Google/Alphabet. So there's a power shift there. And then we're going to talk a little bit about blowhards. We're going to talk about the market. We're talking about analysts. But we're also going to talk about a different way of looking at the GDP. So all exciting stuff today. Matt's also going to make something.
Wow. I mean, I know we do this every day, and I know we've known each other a long time.
4 days a week.
But when you sell it hard.
Do I? I don't even know.
Not even a little bit. Here we go.
Ready? So it's the end of an era at Google. Larry Page and Sergey Brin, who co-founded the search giant more than 2 decades ago, announced they were stepping down from executive roles at Google's parent company, Alphabet. I'm guessing that some of our listeners don't even really know what the hell Alphabet is. Essentially, Alphabet is the top of the food chain, and it was part of the founders' efforts to make Alphabet the kind of the Berkshire Hathaway of the tech industry. This way, they still controlled the overall scene, but they left it daily dirty of running Google and YouTube with people who had more energy. So that's basically what Alphabet is. But the big story here is that the co-founders are out. They're not going to be a part of the day-to-day operations. Of course, they will maintain their shareholdings, which means that they still have the say over everything that the company does, and they will remain on the board. So, if anyone's going to get too comfortable with new ideas, they're going to still be sitting in there staring at you.
It is the least out. This is the worst quit ever.
Well, it could be a slow quit, right? We don't know. So Sundar Pichai, who is currently Google's CEO, will now become the CEO of both Google and Alphabet and this other arm called Other Bets. That's where all the cool stuff happens at Google. So, yeah, he won't be running YouTube, but he'll be running everything else. So I'm impressed, Sundar. This is incredible. I mean, this is a lot.
No, don't clap for that.
No?
No. And here's why. Because what he's inheriting is arguably the biggest mess of nonsense facing any company anywhere, with maybe the exception of Facebook, who at least has an indisputable monarch sitting at the top of it.
Right.
Sundar right now is facing, in no particular order, antitrust pressure, the GDPR pressure on privacy.
Oh, yeah.
Lawsuits about child pornography, pedophiles, and pimps and prostitutes.
Yeah.
Tax avoidance.
Yeah.
An employee uprising.
Yeah. Well, Facebook's got all that too.
Yeah, well, of course. But if Facebook has a unimpeachable king.
Yeah, and he's 12 years younger, so he's
got more energy.
Well, yeah, exactly. Because we did the math, and Bill Gates stepped down from Microsoft at about the same age. So we figured Zuck has about 12 years left.
I mean, is this a really... And Sundar, when Microsoft left, or when Bill Gates left, left, and Ballmer took over. Sundar, Larry Page, and Sergey Brin are leaving, and Bill Gates was the chair of the board still.
Yeah.
Sergey and Larry own more than 50% of the vote.
They do.
So
And
it
Gates
doesn't
didn't.
matter if they're the board chair. It doesn't matter if they
Right.
decide they don't like the CEO anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
Is this arguably the best worst job in the entire?
This is how I saw it. This is what I thought. I thought this is like the ultimate feather in the corporate cap. Like this is to me, this is the most impressive job in all of the corporate world. I mean, Google. I feel like Google runs the world. That's how I feel. So you get into your office. You know, you look out. You look at your view. You're like, I did it. I'm the greatest. Everyone else sucks. And then you panic, right? Immediate panic. That's what would happen. So it's like 5 seconds of glory, and just like, what the hell? Like, I'm running Google.
And just to reemphasize, running Google is running a fake public company. We talked about this
Sure.
yesterday.
Yeah.
Google is the largest fake public company in the US.
Yeah. It's not. It's not. It's really a private company held by two men.
So, congratulations, Sundar. Enjoy your suite in Washington, D.C. to be closer to all the congressional hearings you're going to have to appear in over the next 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, and
Let's give
now
him some
it's not,
credit. Yeah.
before it was just Google, right? Sundar actually testified in front of, had a congressional hearing about Google because he was the CEO of the Google, like the search
Right.
engine part, right? He testified about like search and how YouTube searches, favored liberal biasy. I mean, like some of it was utter nonsense. And then it was like questions about how violating is your privacy. Like your Android phones know what floor I'm on and how hot my pants are. These are real questions. I watched the
Business
whole thing
pants.
this morning. These and I mean, like, this is so Sundar's done this already. It's not like he's going to be new to it, but
Yeah.
it's
And yeah.
next level when you have to do it for the entirety of
Right.
Alphabet.
Look, I mean, if anything, it's an extreme vote of confidence.
From
Don't you
who?
think? I mean, these two would not be stepping down if they didn't think they were leaving in very, very capable hands. So, I mean, that's how I'm looking at it.
Here's my prediction.
Yeah.
They're stepping down
Hmm.
partially because they founded the company and it's been a long time and it's time to sort of step down. They are
Time for
not
navel gazing.
but they are not relinquishing their shares or the control of the company. It
Not
makes
yet.
me think there's
Yeah.
an inevitable breakup of Google. There is inevitably YouTube has to
Why?
spin off because YouTube is the biggest liability that Google faces.
Okay.
Otherwise, Google's not getting called to congressional hearings. They're not a
Yeah.
content curator.
So you're thinking maybe they're bowing out because the storms are coming and they don't want to deal.
I think the storm's coming, and I
Yeah.
think the outcome of the storm is likely to be YouTube isn't part of Alphabet at some point. I
Well,
can't
notice.
imagine how
Yeah.
it stays.
Well, you could be right. I mean, notice that they're happy with the leadership at YouTube. They're keeping it separate, so there might be a reason for that. That's all we got.
Wow.
Any last final words on Google?
No, I got to go Google some stuff though. Hold on a second.
Can I add that I officially have added DuckDuckGo to my browser. Of course, I'm using Google Chrome as my
You and
browser.
Jack
So,
Dorsey. Jack Dorsey uses
yeah,
DuckDuckGo to search
I
for
love it.
African real estate.
I love it. I love it. All right. In our second story of the day, I want to talk a little bit about investments, the market, the way we talk about investments.
Boring.
Do we have the right people in place? Do we have too many people in place? Do we analyze the market in the right way? Do we use the right terms? Is it time to let other people and metrics have a crack at it? In other words, I just want to talk about it. All right, Matt?
Talk.
So there are two stories that led me to this desire to talk. So here we go. The first is that there's a report that in 2019, almost every investment worked. Okay, the S&P 500 is up more than 25% and counting. Treasuries all soared. Oil, gold, and corporate bonds all scored double-digit returns. Only 64 companies in the S&P 500 are in the red this year. all 11 S&P 500 sectors have positive returns. So the point is, everything is going up. Why do we need all these middlemen and women? I don't get it. What are we analyzing anymore?
Well, I did pull one stat.
Yeah.
30% of the S&P 500. So about 11% of them had negative returns, but 30% of S&P 500 companies had some sort of significant, if you define significant vote against a director as 10% against or more, 30% of them actually had a significant vote against at least one director. So analysts are doing something.
Well, so it sounds like all they can be useful for is isolating those companies which won't weather rocky storms, right? I don't know. I mean, what else is there to analyze now?
But there's a self-fulfilling, this is the blowhardy part to me.
Yeah.
Because it's not so much what they're analyzing as the self-fulfilling prophecy of analyzing everything and saying everything's going to go up. So I will talk about this another day. Maybe I'll bring it to the show tomorrow. But I've been working on this thing called the hype index.
Oh yeah. We could talk about that. Yeah.
Which I think is effectively, I want to make it the official index of free float media.
Okay.
Because it's so blowhardy. It's effectively a list of companies that analysts absolutely love, and many of whom make no money, like some or haven't changed. They just love it because
they're selling stories.
They're selling stories. That's what I like about the hype index, and that's the self-fulfilling prophecy of being an analyst. Look, you were an analyst. I was an analyst.
Yeah.
We would do our analysis, and then what?
We'd drink more coffee.
We'd do our analysis, and then we'd go out and we'd tell a story about that analysis.
Yeah, that's true.
That we hope someone will believe.
Right. Well, I was a corporate governance analyst, so I was pointing out negativity. I was a complainer, so it's a different type of analyst.
But I went to business. I was asked to and one of the I've done lectures at business schools, and one of the lectures I gave, a teacher asked me a student asked me, what should we be learning so that we can be ESG analysts? And my answer was, learn how to write. I don't give a shit about anything else. When I hire, I want somebody who can write. I want you to be able to communicate, right? And the teachers all applauded, and the kids were like, boring. It was, but that's really what we're talking about. So analysts saying the market's going to go, everything going up, isn't part of that just analysts saying everything's going to go up and everyone believing that the story that everything should go up all the time?
All right, let's, I want to, while we have time, I want to talk about the other part of this that made me bring this up in the first place. So second, there is a push by the prime ministers of 3 countries, Iceland, Scotland, and New Zealand, all women. You got that?
I do.
Shocking, right? There's a push to put well-being ahead of gross domestic product or GDP in budget planning. Okay. So essentially adding environmental, social, and governance metrics to those metrics used to measure a country's production in goods and services. In other words, adding ESG to the GDP. You with me so far? You with me?
Yes.
Okay, so Iceland's prime minister has urged governments to adopt green and family-friendly priorities instead of just focusing on economic growth figures. She's teamed up with the other 2 prime ministers to promote a well-being agenda being called an alternative future based on well-being and inclusive growth. The idea here, Matt, is that we need new social indicators besides traditional GDP data. And she had a good metaphor, which if you spend some time with, you might enjoy. This is what the Icelandic prime minister said.
Bathe me in her metaphor.
She said that an Icelandic poet had joked that having sex with your wife doesn't count in GDP, but with a prostitute, it does. Think about it.
That's not really a metaphor. That's a true fact.
Just an analogy. Yeah, no, it is a true fact, but you know. So these women are not alone. Nobel Prize winning economist Joseph Stiglitz is among several economists urging that GDP fails to capture the impact of climate change, inequality, digital services, and other phenomena shaping modern societies. In a Guardian article last month, he said that the 2008 global financial crisis was the ultimate illustration of the deficiencies in commonly used metrics. So,
well, here's why I think
yeah.
GDP fits in this conversation of blowhards and storytelling. GDP is an aggregate of basically purchases and transfers. It's supposed to capture the economic output of a country,
Right.
but it only does it looking at like how much money that country made in various forms.
Which leads to icebergs melting in Iceland.
The unintended consequence of that is we miss all the stuff that actually makes life livable.
Yeah, sustainable,
like food,
enjoyable,
and water, things we like. So yeah, it's time for GDP to get blown hard and change up. I feel like.
Is it a coincidence that this is being led by 3 female world leaders?
I mean it's been in economist circles and in ESG circles for a long time. So
yeah, but I'm saying that these 3 women are bringing it to the dinner table. Like they're bringing it into the popular vernacular. It's not just left in your stuffy conference rooms. Like they're really this is like a real life application of ESG metrics, right? I mean, this is it.
Yeah, it's also incredibly difficult to measure. That's the big problem with it.
This is why I've been saying, like, just let women run shit for the next 100 years. Okay, just give them, see what happens.
I'm fine with that.
All right,
we're gonna make something.
Yeah, I guess we're done. Those are our 2 big stories.
Let's make something.
We're right on time today. I like it.
Let's make something.
Matt makes. What are you making today, Matt?
Matt's making some CEOs disappear.
Ooh, I like it.
So, in honor of Larry Page stepping down as CEO and the rise of Sundar Pichai. Sorry, Sundar.
Sundar.
I just wanted to do, there actually were a few CEOs. In fact, CEOs from Expedia and the CFO just stepped down today.
Yeah, Barry Diller's mad, so he's getting rid of some people.
They announced today, and the CEO yesterday, the CEO of Residio, who none of you have ever heard of.
Yep.
But they are the company that makes all your Honeywell thermostats.
Ooh, I was looking at a new thermostat. Okay.
They're the ones who actually make it. Their CEO announced last night or yesterday afternoon that he's stepping down too. So I wanted to actually talk about a little bit, just really quickly, about CEO turnover and CEOs disappearing. So why do you care when a CEO leaves? I think the best way to answer that question is to ask, do you care when your boss changes?
Usually applauding.
I mean, everyone cares about who their boss is. For an investor, this is just the boss of your asset, right? Like this is the one that's supposed to steward your asset into incredible riches.
The day-to-day, the daily operations.
So this is why investors care and why you should care, because when when like the CEO of your Honeywell thermostat, creator actually leaves, that has changed. That makes the product that you buy, there can be fundamental changes to how that thing gets built and the problems with it and all that kind of stuff. So some stats. I'm just going to throw some quick stats at you so you know how big of a thing this is.
Let's do it.
First of all, 11% of CEOs in the U.S., and this is all publicly traded companies in the U.S., have less than 1 year on the job.
All right, so 1 in 10 are new.
1 in 10 CEOs is totally new. You'll never guess how many of them are men.
I mean, I will guess. It's probably 95%.
I think it's 99, actually.
Okay, sorry.
So most of the time they get replaced with other white men. So, I mean,
good
progress.
Good.
But that's most of the time, not all of the time. It used to be all of the time.
Right,
so,
right. Obama was president after all. Yeah.
So we do have a significant amount of new blood. And in fact, when you expand that to like under 2 years, you're looking at over 20%. 1 in 5 CEOs.
It seems high, right?
It's really high because if you think about when you take a new job, I don't care where you work. If you take any new job, you don't learn that job in like 3 months. It usually takes you 6 to 8 months to really figure out what you're doing.
Yeah, as we're proving here. I mean, this is my new job.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
We're like a month or 2 into it.
I don't even know who you are. Okay. Another stat, interesting stat. Yeah. The median CEO tenure on the job for U.S. companies as of 2019 is 5 years. Median.
The average, so CEO,
The average is actually 7 years because there's a skew. But this means most CEOs won't last more than 5 years.
That's crazy talk.
In the U.S., we just love tossing out CEOs. We love.
Well, you know what? Part of the problem is that they make these huge golden hello bumps at their new companies, so there's actually an incentive to leave. I mean, which there shouldn't be.
Couple that with the fact that a lot of them get golden parachutes, so that when they leave, they get paid to come and go.
They're incentivized to always be focusing on the short term, which is just ridiculous.
This is the context in which Mike Nefkins...
For those of you watching at home,
For those of you watching at home, I made a chart on this, but I will read through the chart. Yeah. Mike Nefkins of Residio, who's left, he left after just over 1 year on the job.
So what the hell happened there? Do we know what went on there?
Health and family reasons. So... That's kind of your blanket.
That means you're fired.
I do feel like anytime like an athlete says they're retiring to spend more time with their family, they then go spend time with their family and realize I really liked not spending time with my family, so I'm going to go back and unretire.
That's true.
So Mike Nefkins, I expect you'll have another CEO position in the next 6 to 8 months. Unless he's actually sick, in which case I'm sorry, Mike. I don't mean to.
It happened. It happened.
Mark Okerstrom from Expedia stepping down after just 2 years on the job.
Okay. Well, that's clearly a power struggle. Speaking of fake companies, I mean, that's Barry Diller's company, and he's sick of them.
Yeah, Barry Diller, not a fan.
No.
Also worth saying, Larry Page, Sergey Brin was not the CEO. Larry Page,
was the president. Yeah,
he was the president. Larry Page was the CEO, but he was the CEO in 1997 to 2001 when he was ousted
of
Google, and then he was ousted, and Eric Schmidt was the CEO, and then he came back to being the CEO of Alphabet, and he was the CEO of Alphabet roughly for 8 years, and now he's. Well,
I don't want to derail you too much, but I mean, that does prove that there can be counterbalances to some of these fake public companies, right? Because he was ousted and he had this shared controlling ownership, right?
He was ousted by the investors who funded Google pre-IPO.
Okay, so at that point, did he and Brin have a controlling vote?
He was ousted in 2001. I believe they IPO'd in 2001, 2004 maybe, actually.
Well, so maybe it was part of the plan all along. Okay, keep going.
Last, I just wanted to chuck some fun facts to you because we're a little bit over here.
Yeah.
CEO fun facts, CEO turnover fun facts. Of the 255 new CEOs, these are CEOs with less than a year on the job.
Yeah.
21 of them got to be board chairs.
Sure.
So double job.
That's low. Yeah.
7 of them got to be board chair with no independent lead director, meaning effectively they are CEO kings. So
yeah, they're dictators of the board.
255 new CEOs, 7 new CEO dictators.
I will say this is one area where corporate governance, ESG people have been effective because this number is really low compared to 10 years ago.
It does seem low, although we do have to start asking, can we have a little bit of patience? I mean, 255 new CEOs.
No patience.
11% of all U.S. companies have a new CEO on the job. That sounds...
Yeah.
And none of them are women. We have no patience. And
it's interesting.
Still can't find a woman to run something.
We figured out how to shame companies into not having these CEO kings in the board, but we haven't figured out how to deal with the founder kings, right? So,
ooh, topic for tomorrow.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna hit the buzzer on you. Let's get out of here while we can.
Subscribe, rate us. We are Free Float Media, presenting you Business Pants. That is Damion Rallis. I am Matt Mascardi. We have a team who works with us, including our executive producer, Courtney Rowe. Our focus group is Courtney Cook. Our senior advisor is Dan Rogachnig. Art and design by John Walsh. It's an amazing group of people, but more amazing is you. We really want your ratings. We really want your feedback.
Yeah.
We really want you to subscribe. Watch us live. Watch the highlights on YouTube, on Twitter. We're all over the place. Look for us.
Involved.
We'll be at you soon.
All right. Talk to you tomorrow.
Talk to you.